Hi everyone, and welcome finally to our part 4 of our verb type 2 series. So this is the final video about verb type 2s. So the content of this video, we're going to go over 2 verbs from the verb type 2. So we're going to go over Juoda and Syödä, and then we're going to go over them in both Kirjakieli and Puhekieli, and then I'm going to give you 5 verbs to practice with on your own, and of course the answers for those will be in the description box below. So let's get started. Aloitetaan. So first up is Juoda. So we'll go over the traditional Kirjakieli way of conjugating these verbs to fit a negative sentence. So we'll start off with me, so Minä. So one thing I want you to know is that in Finnish, depending on who is doing the action, the verb is changing. So when you turn it into a negative, actually the verb stays the same and it's the negative part that's changing. So if that doesn't make any sense, we'll go over Juoda, to drink, as our first example, and I'm sure you'll get the hang of it very quickly. So starting with Minä, so I. So with negatives, as I said, the negative part of the sentence is the only thing that's changing. So we will take the base of the word Juoda. So if you can remember, the DA at the end is signifying that it's a verb type 2. And just like with most of the conjugations that we did previously in all of our other videos, we take the DA off and leave it off. So juo is what we will be using throughout all of our sentences here. So juo is what we want. And then the only part that is changing based on who is doing the action is the negative part. So for Minä, I, if you want to say I don't drink, the don't part would be en, en. So the n there is signifying that I don't drink. En, minä en juo. I don't drink. So the don't is I don't, so en juo. The n there is signifying I, so technically, because the n there already makes it obvious that I'm not drinking, you don't need Minä. That's why Minä is in brackets, because parentheses? Because en juo, it's already obvious that I'm not drinking. So the full sentence, Minä en juo. Minä en juo. I don't drink. Okay, then let's move on to you in Kirjakieli. You is sinä. Sinä means you, singular. So to say you don't drink, the sentence stays the same. The only thing that changes is obviously using sinä instead of minä, but the don't part changes from en to et, et. So the t signifies you are doing the action. And as you can remember, before when we were conjugating, the endings are very similar because minä juon, I drink, has the n at the end. Minä en juo, the n is just changing to the negative part. En juo. Sinä juot, the t is at the end of juot, but in the negative, the t just bounces over to the et, so to the negative part. Sinä et juo. Et juo. So you don't drink. Et juo. Again here, sinä is unnecessary because we know from the t at the end of et that you are not drinking. So therefore you can add sinä for extra emphasis, but technically it's not needed. Sinä et juo. Okay, then we move on to hän, so he or she. Here again, we just use the basic word a. We don't do any conjugation to it, we just leave it as is. Hän ei juo. He, she doesn't drink. Hän ei juo. Hän ei juo. Okay, and then we don't drink. We is me. we leave juo as is, as we have done, and then the don't part changes to emme. So again here, as you remember, me, juo, me has the mme ending. So instead of putting it to the end of juoda, so juo me, we're just moving that ending to the don't part. So emme, emme juo, me, emme juo. Okay, so are you kind of getting the logic? So instead of putting these endings at the end of the juoda verb, we're putting them to the end of the negative part, so the don't part. So yeah, the don't part is what's signifying who's doing the action in this case, and juo just stays as juo throughout. And then te, ette juo, can you guess? Normally for the te, the ending is tte. Instead of putting it at the end of juo, we're putting it at the end of the a. So e, tte, te, ette juo. You guys, plural, you plural, don't drink. Te, ette juo. Te, ette juo. You guys don't drink. Okay, and then finally, he means they. He, they. He eivät juo. He eivät juo. So the vat ending moves to the a. Eivät. Eivät. And it's not eivät. Eivät. It's eivät, I think, just because it sounds better. He eivät juo. Eivät juo. They don't drink. He eivät juo. All right, are we kind of getting the hang of this? Let's go over one more example for Kirjakieli before moving to Puhekieli. So starting with Minä, I. How do we say I don't eat? Minä en syö. So first of all, we have syödä. The da signifies verb type 2, and as we have done in all of our conjugations thus far, we take the d-at off. We don't need that. So what we're left with is syö. Syö is what we will be leaving as it is, because the ending we're going to be, because it's a negative sentence, the ending is going to be going on to the back of the don't part. So a turns into n, en, because I'm not eating. Minä en syö. The n is the minä ending, and we add it on to the a part. Minä en syö. Minä en syö. I don't eat. So we had minä en juo and minä en syö. I don't drink and I don't eat. Oh, I must be so starving. Minä en juo, minä en syö. Then next up we have you, singular. You is sinä. The sinä ending is t. So remember, we already have syö, but we're not adding it to syö, we're adding it to the a, so it becomes sinä et syö. You don't eat. Sinä et syö. Or just et syö. You don't eat. All right, then we move on to he, she. So hän. Again, it just stays the same. Hän ei syö. Hän ei syö. Hän ei syö. So hän ei juo ja hän ei syö. He, she doesn't drink and he, she doesn't eat. Hän ei juo ja hän ei syö. Okay, then we move on to me. So the me ending is mme, and we want to add it to the end of the a part. So we have me, we, emme syö. We don't eat. Emme syö, or for more emphasis, me emme syö. We don't eat. Emme syö. Emme syö. And then you, plural, don't eat, would be te, ette, tte ending, syö. Te, ette syö. Te ette juo tai syö. You don't eat or drink. ette, sorry, that was the other way around. Te ette juo tai syö. You don't drink or eat. And then finally, we have he, so they, he, eivät, that being the they ending, he, eivät, syö. He, eivät, syö. Eivät, syö. Whew, okay, so before we move on, I would like you guys to practice the Kirjakieli negative conjugations a bit. Alright, welcome back. Let's move on to Puhekieli now. So Puhekieli is even more simpler. And again, I realize there's a lot of rules, but these are just things you're going to have to practice over and over and over again with repetition, just so that you start to remember this, because this is something you'll have to memorize. And eventually these rules will hopefully stick in your head and they'll start to kind of sound more correct when you're talking or trying to write. They'll make more sense as the more you practice, because there's no easy way to it. You just have to keep on practicing. I know you guys can do it. So the main thing in most of these that is changing is the pronoun. So if you guys already know the shortenings of the pronouns, this might be easier. If not, listen on. But there is a difference for the me, so keep on listening even if you know the shortened pronouns. So for puhekieli, minä en juo turns into mä en juo. Mä en juo, because minä, the puhekieli shortening, is mä. So it just turns into mä en juo. Mä en juo. I don't drink. Sinä et juo turns into sä et juo. So sinä turns into the puhekieli version of sä. Sä et juo. Sä et juo. You don't drink. Then hän ei juo would most likely turn into se ei juo. So in puhekieli, sometimes people do use hän, but also people also use the word se when talking about he or she, which in English sounds funny. You don't really in English call people an it, but in Finnish, in puhekieli, it is fairly common to call a person it in puhekieli. So you would say se ei juo. Se ei juo. It doesn't drink. Se ei juo. But of course, if you're talking to, an older person, or you're in customer service, or you're talking to like maybe a worker or something and you want to be like a bit more polite, do use hän. Se is more like very colloquial amongst friends, or I don't know. So just be a bit more wary about that, just as a tip. Me is the only one that the actual verb is changing. So I think we may have touched upon this in the previous video, but me emme juo turns into me ei juoda. That's the puhekieli way. Me emme juo sounds very formal and book language-ish. So in everyday speech, you are much more likely to hear people say me ei juoda. Me ei juoda. Okay, so this is the only exception for when you're not using only juo for the negative. You're using ei juoda for the me in this case. Me ei juoda. That is something, just practice in your head a lot, because me emme juo turns into me ei juoda, and that's what sounds the most natural when speaking. Then next up we have te ette juo, you plural don't drink, which turns into te ette juo. It's exactly the same. Honestly, I was thinking and I was like, is there a shortened version of te ette juo? I can't think of any. If you're Finnish and you do use something that's shorter than this, let me know. But personally, I couldn't think of anything that I would use that's different to te ette juo. I would just use that in everyday speech as well. So that's the same, I think. And then finally, he eivät juo turns into he ei juo. He ei juo. He ei juo. ei juo. So you just get rid of the that ending. All right, and then let's take one more example and go through this again with syödä, just to make sure you really understand these negative conjugations in puhekieli. So minä en syö turns into mä en syö. So again, the minä turns into mä. Mä en syö. En syö. Sinä et syö turns into sä et syö. Sä et syö. Et syö. Sä et syö. Then hän ei syö turns into se ei syö. Se ei syö. You could also in puhekieli use hän ei syö. That's fine as well. But you will sometimes hear also se ei syö. So both are fine in puhekieli, hän or se. Hän ei syö, se ei syö. Me emme syö. Me emme syö, which turns into me ei syödä. Ei syödä. Me ei syödä. Again, in this situation, you would want to make sure you say me ei syödä. Just, it sounds clearer when you use me here, just so that the clarity of like we're not eating is really emphasized, and it's clear who is not eating. Me ei syödä. Ei syödä. Me ei syödä. Yeah. And then te ette syö stays the same. Te ette syö, te ette syö for both kirja and puhekieli. And finally, he eivät syö turns into he ei syö. He ei syö. I'll give you the 5 same verbs to practice the puhekieli negative conjugations with. So yeah, now that you're done with those, I guess that's just about it for this video. And that at the same time wraps up the verb type 2 videos. Hopefully these were helpful. There are 3 more verb types to get through, but I think I'll do a wee little break after verb type 2 and maybe focus on a couple of different other grammar things. Do let me know in the comments if this was helpful or if there's anything about verb type 2s at all that are still unclear to you. I'll try to answer those in the comments below if something is still a question mark or there's still something about verb types 2s that I forgot to cover in this series. But yeah, that's just about it. So thank you for watching. Nähdään ensi videossa. Moikka!